All right, welcome everyone. We're going to start our August Public Health and Safety meeting. And we'll start with approval of the minutes for June 2023. Would someone like to?
I move to approve the minutes from June 2023.
Okay. So, second?
Second.
Okay, we'll vote to approve. All right, so the minutes are approved. We did not meet in July because we didn't have a quorum. I do want to thank our police, public works, and fire for responding to the big storm so quickly early this week. And I think the whole staff seemed to work really well together. So. All right, so we're going to go to public comment. And we'll start with, I think, Mr. Jay Whitmore.
That's right. Thanks.
Okay.
Hey guys. So just wanted to reiterate the original request that my neighbors and I signed applied to the Conway and Windsor intersection, which now has a four-way stop sign. So thank you again. I think that's going great. Dudley, so also along Windsor, Dudley and Grayling were the other two in that original request. My understanding is that was going to be looked into, and the only thing I would add to that request is I think it was last weekend there was a wreck at Dudley. I don't know to what degree like speed was involved or whether this was a lack of stop signs kind of thing, but the car was on its roof, and I haven't seen that happen in too many like four-way stop sign intersections. So I think at the very least it should be kind of thrown into the mix for consideration. That's all I got.
Okay, thank you.
May I just correct? It's my understanding speed was not a factor in that incident, and so I just want to correct any misperception.
Okay, thank you.
She did wind up on her roof though, right?
I understand that.
Right.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Physics.
She might have had a health
It was a matter of
condition.
physics. I don't want to get into it, but it was a matter of physics, not speed.
Okay. Okay. Okay, thank you. So is there anyone on Zoom that wants to make a comment?
The only person on Zoom is Mike Schneider, the traffic engineer.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so next we are going to talk about the traffic concerns. So this may address your comment. And we do have our traffic engineer, Mike, on the line with us. Thank you for coming.
Good morning, everybody.
Hi, Mike.
Morning.
So you were able to send us a couple reports. And I don't know if you or Ken or, should we have Mike just walk through?
Yeah, sure. That sounds good.
Yeah, I'll do a quick summary. First, we looked at the intersection of Windsor and Dudley. We had looked at that before when we looked at Windsor and Conway, and just to refresh everyone's memory, it didn't outwardly meet any warrants for a four-way stop at that time. There was discussion that pedestrians do cross there. So we wanted to wait till the weather was a little bit nicer to see if there is a significant pedestrian volume that may warrant a four-way stop. We went out a couple different times during peak periods and nice weather and really didn't see any sort of heavy pedestrian volume that would meet any sort of multi-way stop warrant. So at Windsor and Dudley, we don't think any multi-way stop warrants are met for that intersection. And we think it should remain a two-way stop as it is now. Parking is sufficiently set back from the intersection side. I don't think anything has to happen at that intersection. And then moving over, sort of similar at Windsor and Grayling, we looked at that, and that did not meet any of the PennDOT or MUTCD warrants for a multi-way stop, including sight distance and pedestrian crossings and volume. So we issued those two memos last week, and in both cases, we do not recommend going to multi-way stops at those two intersections.
Okay, thank you, Mike. And I mean, just to maybe state the obvious, I mean, stop signs are not the only solution, right? We've talked about this, right? So we know that if a stop sign is not warranted, there may be other things that we can address, maybe through, through our police department, or, when concerns arise. So,
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Mike, so that means there's a stop sign at every corner except for 2. And while I appreciate the data that there's not the volume, is there anything just about social patterns and people's habit of, okay, I stop at every block, then there's suddenly 2 that you don't stop at? Because that's where I see the false kind of chicken stopping. If people assume there's a stop and then everyone's a little confused. I mean, outside of the quantitative, is there any just type of social patterns that could come into play there?
The only time there's a warrant is when you have 2 streets of very even volume. So if you had 2 sort of collector type streets that are going through the borough that meet, and it's not sure which one is sort of the dominant street, that can sometimes be used as a warrant. But with regard to how many stop signs you have along a certain roadway, I'd say no. In fact, it's a little bit the opposite, where you don't want too many. If you have too many stop signs and if some of them are unwarranted, it really starts to degrade the effectiveness of the ones you need. You know, so the stop signs where you really don't have sight distance, if they're everywhere, people think, well, there's stop signs everywhere that don't really need to be here, and then they disrespect the ones that really need to be there. So you really need to meet warrants to have the stop signs in, because an overabundance of stop signs really does degrade the effectiveness of the important ones.
Speak first. Okay, thank you.
Are there intersections possibly something that could be addressed in an overall traffic calming policy for the borough that we've talked about?
Yeah, I think they can. So I think when you're looking at those corridors where you have intersections with stop signs, intersections without stop signs, if speeding's a concern to the intersections without stop signs, there's definitely other options, including traffic calming. But traffic calming along those corridors obviously would have to be looked at in a pretty broad sense, just because there's a lot of other adjacent roadways that could get impacted by that. But yeah, there is a thought that, you know, sort of an overall traffic calming look at the borough could help in a lot of these cases, instead of the individual intersections where we have, you know, similar problems at multiple intersections. If you look at each one, you're probably not going to solve it that way. You kind of have to look at the whole roadway and the whole network.
But we should definitely probably, anytime we have a traffic concern, I would think one of the first few questions should be, is this an appropriate place for one of the stormwater bump outs? I mean, we have 19 more that we have to place. We know that road narrowing is a great traffic calming. If we can kind of work effectively with that, I almost think that can be one of the first questions. You know, are those appropriate intersections to install some of our required stormwater bump outs?
I'd say yes. So you do have, now those 2 in particular, I'd look a little bit closer to make sure there's no grading or significant issues that would cause it. But being familiar, I think they would be good candidates. I think there's a lot of intersections that would be good candidates in the borough for those stormwater bump outs. So I think looking at that a little bit holistically is a great idea. Knowing that we've had concerns expressed about certain intersections at the borough that don't meet a multi-way stop or some other signage requirement, they'd probably kind of ping to the top of the list for locations to look at for those stormwater bump outs.
Okay. And in the meantime, I guess I could ask the mayor and our chief, you've heard the concerns about pedestrian crossings and, you know, in that corridor. I know you're aware, but, you know, just to ask that while we're trying to figure out if there's an infrastructure solution, we know there's not a stop sign solution at the moment, but
yeah, and partly we were focusing on Windsor for the current stop signs, and obviously the new stop sign, you know, is a warning period to advise residents. So hopefully that will see a decrease in maybe any instances where it's a rising concern for residents. So, you know, a combination of increased enforcement for what's there may ease some of the problems elsewhere too.
okay.
I wonder, is this an area where John and Jeff, you two are saying, hey, I mean, Jeff, I see you the other day looking at one of the drains up in that intersection because it's such a problem when they get so clogged. Do the 2 of you kind of walk around and say, oh, this is a problem intersection with water, or this is a problem intersection with trash? I mean, that was that kind of built environment public safety, where I think this is almost like our case study of how we can use the built environment design to solve one of our #1 complaints. And Jeff, I'm sure you have a list of hot spots.
Yeah, so our borough engineer and I, when he's back from vacation, are going to be looking at Windsor Avenue in total. You know, because we do have a lot of flooding concerns along Windsor Avenue. So with the proposed pipe replacement and upsizing of the pipe to get into the culvert quicker, we're obviously going to look at, we squeeze in, as many of those as we can.
Okay. All right, so,
Good question.
Yeah.
Like, we had a conversation on this about probably approaching a more comprehensive traffic study. I know it's expensive and pricey. I'm curious, are there available grant programs that might be something we could look at?
Yeah, there's a bunch, and the borough has applied in the past for a similar grant for an overall borough-wide traffic and safety study, traffic safety and parking study. But that could be pared down depending on the grant program. If it's a little bit more of a traffic and safety, the parking may not fit into that, but the traffic calming overall borough study would. So I have sort of a running list of different grants that, I'm sure you have some too, Ken, but I can keep an eye out and throw them over when it looks like a good grant program that would match up is coming up.
It would be nice to be able to do stuff that isn't piecemeal.
Agreed.
So, Mike, while you're with us, there are two other questions we wanted to ask. One was if you could just offer a quick update on Iona. I think you're working on kind of pricing out solutions. Yeah,
right now we're doing a proposal to do the vegetative bump outs. Everything else for that was proposed isn't really heavy in the design standpoint, but the vegetative bump outs are going to need some survey and real design. So I'll get the proposal for that over to the borough shortly. Hopefully next week I'll send that over, and then we can see where that goes from there. But that's where I'm at, is putting a proposal together for Iona to do those bump outs. Like I said, the other improvements really aren't design heavy. They can be put on a plan pretty quickly, but the bump outs need full design.
So what is the timeline then, like for the speed hump or bump?
I can talk to the borough if they want to move forward with that in a different timeline than the bump outs, or if they want to do everything at the same time. They're sort of independent improvements, I'd say, for Iona, so they could be phased in. So I can get with Ken and the borough and talk about a possible timeline for that.
I know the start of school is not realistic, but that road is a major thoroughfare for school traffic and bus stops.
Yeah, well, so it sounds like, Mike, if you have something back to the borough, we could look at it in our next committee meeting, which would be the second Friday in September. Is that reasonable?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. All right, and then the other thing was, you had mentioned other boroughs have a kind of process for considering traffic concerns, and I talked with Ken and Alan about that, and I think you were going to share, we can talk about that in September, but we're just looking to kind of revisit our process for, when should we send out a concern to our engineer? This whole process is time consuming and expensive, it takes staff time. So we need to kind of figure out how to pick and choose which problems should rise to the level of, going over to your office.
Yeah, and it's it's more of it would be a comprehensive traffic calming policy or ordinance for the borough, and other municipalities have them. I prepared them for them, so I think I told Ken I'd get them samples and did last time I talked to him. So I apologize, but I'll get them over. But yeah, in a more expansive traffic calming policy would set the stage for residents to look at to see a clear flow path of how to get the request into the borough. And it's got to meet certain criteria. You have to get a certain percentage of households on your street to sign off before it's even considered. And then when it's considered, it may not pass the other tests as far as a point grading system to see whether or not it gets kicked up to me to actually spend time and do anything on it. So there's different criteria that they're not really meant to dissuade traffic calming, but it's really meant to address the areas that really need it. Because if everyone's if it's so easy to come in and just ask for something, then you're going to get a whole lot of requests coming in, and like Ken said, it'd be piecemeal. But if you have a policy that's in place and it identifies a point system and a petition system for residents to kind of do some of that work on their own before they come into the borough, before the borough actually takes it on, it's a very helpful process. And once it's clear, it's a lot better for residents if they understand the process, they see it, and they understand how it's going to go. So I will I'll send a sample over to Ken right now for a township I did that's a little bit more of a comprehensive one, so you can take a look at that.
Okay, thank you. So any other questions for our traffic engineer? Maybe if you don't mind, can you email it to us today or?
It will come to me, I'll get it out to you.
Okay. All right. All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Mike.
All right, thanks everyone. Have a great weekend. Enjoy your meeting, the rest of your meeting.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, so we do have to get to this trash ordinance, so I want to be sure we don't run out of time. So sorry, Dave. Sorry. All right, so fire company report, I think is going to be filed. You know,
We don't have it yet, but
yeah,
it should be filed soon.
It'll come to us.
Yeah.
One thing that, you know, I just want to put it on our radar. I had a conversation with Ken and I hadn't really thought about it. We've talked about electrifying the fleet in public works and police. We haven't talked explicitly with fire about what that might look like. So maybe in the fall, you know, if it's even feasible.
Yeah, I'm thinking like, wow, really? For the fire company?
Well, I mean, there may be some equipment. There may be some equipment.
I don't even know if they are even there with that kind of technology, are they?
I would just be interested in
I don't think he's talking about the apparatus.
just like starting a conversation.
Okay. Yeah.
There is one
Utility
electric fire truck that they have in LA, but they tow a generator
Is that how they do it?
behind
Yeah.
it so they can plug the truck in when they're on the scene for more than, an hour.
I think they abandoned that.
I think it might be good to give Fran and Bill a heads up that we want to maybe have a conversation with them about it, and then, I don't know, September, if we can do it then, or maybe the next meeting, or?
Yeah, I'm just curious what's happening, because everything is going to be electrified in the next 10 years, you know, so.
Okay.
So, police department. Okay, is there anything, Chief, that you want to share?
I'll make it quick, just the pressing issue with Harrison Road and Pico. They're there now, they're gonna have it cleared up hopefully by this afternoon. The issue we have with them is since there was no outage associated with that wire, it was the lowest priority. And to be honest, we had to call this morning and just say, we understand there's no outage, but this is a major thoroughfare, we need it open, and they finally agreed. But that was the, delay in that, but it should be clear in a second.
Thanks, Chief.
Yeah, thank you for dealing with all of that. And also for serving as our emergency management officer. I know you can do it,
I think that was mostly Jeff for the storm, but yes, thank you.
Okay.
I would like to give an extra, thank you to everybody involved. The Public Works was heroic in the way they handled this storm.
Mm-hmm.
And I've gotten lots of feedback from the residents. They're super appreciative of everything that was done. So.
Yeah, I know folks were here late that night and early the next morning, and we really appreciate it. Okay, so I think we can, I know the Shade Tree next on our agenda here, they're planning for their fall planting. We love trees, even though they sometimes drop their branches and cause trouble.
I did get a request for whether the trees that fell down on Haverford Avenue are going to be replaced. I told them it was Amtrak's property. So I don't know if we can ask them for permission to replace those trees or if that's worth it.
I don't, so Jeff was explaining it earlier with the soil composition there. It's not ideal to have trees planted along there.
Okay.
It's like the roots don't get deep enough, so when we have these storms, they just blow over. So you don't really want to plant more trees.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Right, that's steep hillside there,
Yeah.
Okay, so solid waste ordinance. So this is what we really need to tackle with because we don't have much more time. We want to kind of clear this so that then we can move ahead with bidding for the contract to have that in place for January. So we have reviewed it before. We sent our feedback to the solicitor. he revised the ordinance with our feedback in mind, and everyone kind of weighed in. So, I guess the question is, we could look back through it and see if there are any last suggestions that we want to make, and then I think it would go back to the staff and the solicitor. I guess it would have to be approved at the next council meeting.
Yeah, ideally we were looking to have council approve advertisement. We could do it as early as, next Thursday. If not, then, would it be until September 21st? So, I mean, maybe we should put it forward for advertisement for next week. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I don't, well, we'll see in the conversation. I don't think there's that much that we have to still figure out.
No, yeah, I mean, my concern is definitely the multi-use households and apartments and lots of trust.
So you're satisfied with that?
Yeah, I mean, I would ask the office too, and even Jeff, what your perspective is on the streets when houses, multi-use houses or apartment buildings put up cans, and John, it blocks the right of way. What is the appropriate number of cans that our sidewalks can hold?
Even seeing, how there was a one line in there, to maintain, a maximal, passable sidewalk width. A lot of that's just not even obtainable for these homes that have a wall or a hedgerow right out front, so then they're forced to put the can in the street, which then ties up a parking spot. The few multi-housing, complexes or apartments, they typically line all their cans up, and it's at least on the edge of the sidewalk, so folks can still pass. My biggest thing is just blocking parking.
Yeah, so when you have, I'm thinking of the apartment complex like Dudley, when you have 25 cans out there, even if it's in a single row or if it's in the street, it's also unsightly to once or twice a week see 25 trash cans out on them.
I don't know if it's an issue we can really address just because of the way our borough is built out. We have narrow sidewalks. We don't have a lot of space in front of our dwellings. Our streets are narrow, so we have a lot of things that make it difficult for where you're going to place a can. There's not even there's hardly any curb strips either that you can put it in. So I don't know what the best solution is.
Well, I think the question was then apartments need a dumpster.
Yeah, and I think John was suggesting, I think if there's 10 or more units, they have to have a dumpster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Was it 10 or more?
Well, yeah, let's check the number.
Lower. Yeah, I think we brought it down to 5. We thought 10 was...
Oh, we originally said 10.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it is 5.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, he says 4 plus 5.
There's, they use a solution on the 100 block of Forest Avenue where there's 3 apartments in a row. Between Danny's and my shop, there's 3 sets of apartments in a row. What they do is they have 4 large, not dumpsters, but large trash bins behind, kind of to the side in the back of the building, and they have all the apartments put their trash in these 4 trash bins, and the trash people actually come down the driveway and pick up the 4 bins and take them out and put them back. So that, sometimes it gets overflowing if they miss a pickup or something, but in general that seems to work, because then you don't have the cans out in the middle of Forest Avenue, and as long as they can come down half a driveway, it's not a steep, long driveway or anything, but it keeps it out of the way. So it's a system that's worked for many years.
Do you think lowering that number to 5 will make a difference? But I think the ordinance as it's written now, it's saying that you pretty much can't put the trash cans on the sidewalks for a lot of areas, just because there's no space to put it elsewhere. A lot of the sidewalks are very narrow, and there's no space. So I think as the staff and the borough needs to be a little bit more clear about giving guidance to the residents on where it should be located, ideally.
Whether on the street versus
whether it's
the
the street, the driveway. So I think that needs to be.
The one I'm talking about, surfaces, I'm going to estimate 20 apartments. So.
Well, how about you could make it that they can partner so that this arrangement can continue? I mean, if it works, there's no point in forcing them to break out and create.
It might be a system that could work for other multi-use.
Right. So maybe some language in there that allows different buildings to share a collection, and depending on proximity, like a certain distance.
I think we should let them mark it out, maybe instead. And we're not going to enforce. I don't think you're interested in enforcing trash can placement.
It comes down to the individual's level of respect for pedestrians. I mean, like, I know, like, I purposely put the trash can in a place where it's not going to block the sidewalk, but not everybody has that mentality.
Same here.
And then it's kind of like it'd be very hard to go around and, yeah, it wouldn't work.
Although it would be lovely if you could police civility. That's not something we can do. Like, I'd rather just focus on, here's the rule, the big offenders, like the apartments with the 25.
Right.
Yeah, the rest of the folks can figure this out.
That's where we have property managers who should be our points to deal with rather than the tenants themselves. It's the property management that can make sure the tenants are adhering to the rules.
I would like to think that most people are not trying to block the sidewalk either, it's just they don't have another choice, like.
And in small instances where we get complaints about the sidewalk being blocked, most of the time it isn't a matter of just going up and saying, hey, you know, we need to find an alternate place, and they're accommodating, so.
Yeah. Okay, great.
So, all right, so okay, so we set that number at 5.
Actually, there was something in there, I'm trying to find it. It said 3 or 5. Let's see if I can find that. 437-6, classification of properties. Under B. I just wanted to clarify, it says multifamily dwelling is defined by a property designed for and occupied exclusively by either 3 family dwellings or 4 or 5 family dwelling units. Is it 3 to 5? It's probably 3 to 5. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I just wanted to.
Yeah. And I feel like the addition of the need for the wall or something that the waste dumpster shall be designed in a manner fully enclosed, the waste or recyclable stored inside, because we haven't had that. That is section G under storage.
Okay, so just 1 second. So should we, Alan and Ken, how do you want to handle the, should we make a list of, edits that we want to suggest back to John Walco?
Yeah, that's fine.
Do you want me to do that?
It's up to you. We'll be taking notes here.
Okay.
So which section are we?
I just didn't want to lose this one that Jean brought up.
It's B.
So it was
437-6, classification of properties.
Okay.
Under B. I did make a comment in the document that I sent to you guys.
Yeah.
Okay. So just clarify that 3 to 5.
I'm actually confused too why it's 3 or 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
It probably was supposed to be 2 and he just didn't swap it.
Right.
So we're swapping 4 for the word 2.
I just thought it would just say 5, right? So multifamily is just more than 5, is that?
I think it is 3 to 5 because it's either a duplex or it doesn't fit in the same category. And then anything from 3 to 5 is considered multifamily dwelling. And then anything above that is considered commercial.
Yeah.
Okay, so like multifamily then doesn't need a dumpster.
Right.
It looks like a typo.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
And then, so then Cindy, which section were you in?
I was in, shoot, I lost it. Storage of waste. It starts on page 6, letter G. it looks like John added that waste dumpsters shall be designed in a manner fully enclosed with access to through a side. So essentially just to prevent neighbors from having to see dumpsters or trash cans, which we have not had.
Yeah, okay, so I did want to talk about that, because we have heard from residents about, concerns where a dumpster for an apartment building is visible from a private home, but it's an existing building, and I think John clarified that we couldn't require an existing apartment building to build a new structure, right? But we can, going forward with new development, require those input. Is that something?
I'm not, with this, given that it lives outside of the development code, I'm not sure.
Yeah, typically it's covered under the SALDO.
Okay.
Or it's covered under the zoning ordinance.
Right. But this is independent of that, and typically when it's enacted, the provisions are enforceable.
Well, yeah, because he does say this would be able to be applied to existing dumpsters.
Right.
The G one?
The G one, yeah, is that you don't have to move the dumpster, but you have to make it aesthetically.
Screen it.
That sounds like a big expense to do like a screen buffer, like you have to put fencing up or a wall, or I feel like that's gonna be hard for us to go out to like these existing apartment buildings and say, hey, now your dad is screen around your dumpster.
Well, actually, all the G says is
A lot of them do outside of the downtown. My building does.
the dumpster has to be fully enclosed, right? So with access through side door or lid that shall be closed without any use. So I think it's referring to a dumpster that doesn't have any sort of covering.
No lid, yeah.
Okay.
And so that's what G would address, and that would actually respond to some of the resident concerns.
Like that one large open dumpster.
Yes.
Yeah, we're thinking of,
Yeah.
So to address the original concern
Yeah, it
of
says detectable odors.
having the visible dumpsters, maybe this ordinance could refer to the SALDO, and is it currently in the SALDO?
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
yeah, for a new like apartment building, if they were they'd have to screen it.
Yeah.
They'd have to buffer it or put some kind of enclosure around it.
To the current SALDO.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not fully, and maybe not as much as we would want.
Right.
But it's still an improvement.
Something, yes.
Because we can't require that they build a fence or that they build a hedge, they plant a hedge, because the building already exists. But we can require that it be fully enclosed, which is a public health and safety concern. I mean, we talked about rodents.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and then moving on below that though, I am comfortable with the 1 unit per waste for multifamily. I think that's reasonable.
Oh, I think the question that John had come back to us with was, what is the 1 unit per waste? And we were talking about that, what is that volume? And
I was wondering, so why don't we consider the tote barrels for trash, right? Each house has 1 tote barrel.
Garbage cart?
Yeah, garbage cart.
So I was doing some research into what other municipalities are doing in terms of controlling the volume. And there are different ways to go about it. You can either do it through the container, so you can, a 20-gallon container or a 40-gallon container. You can do it by weight limit.
I think you do it by container. Weight's too hard to enforce.
Yeah, how would you do that? You
Yeah.
could do that, right, John?
Yeah, sure.
Trash?
So I lived in Conshohocken Borough. Each household gets 1 trash, 1 recycle tote. That's all you can put out. You can't put out more cans. You have to put out each of your totes. And I find that it works the best. I mean,
But we don't give totes out anymore.
no, but we can, in this new trash contract, we can require that we do the totes.
you mean,
Part of it.
yeah,
We could have them for sale.
that was a question, right? As part of the contract, the company could offer a bulk buying, residents would still have to buy the tote, right?
Yeah.
And it might be a good price.
Right.
Why not just require them to use our totes? That way we know it's going to be the volume that we want to permit.
We
What
could, but
happened?
then everyone's throwing away their old trash cans.
Well,
I think you're gonna
As
get.
long as it meets a certain specification, otherwise they have to get a new one. Because well, the whole goal of this is not necessarily to be wasteful for cans, it's just to limit the amount of waste we're hauling each collection cycle.
Well, could we just say not to exceed, what's the Conshohocken level?
It's just 1 tow barrel.
Or what, I mean, however big the tow barrel is. Yeah, like, not to exceed.
You could fit like 4 trash bags in a tow barrel too. I mean, they're pretty big.
Perfect, okay, whatever that is, I would just say 1, not to exceed.
Make 1 unit that.
Yeah, not to exceed, because.
I mean, John did say we don't even really need to define the 1 unit if we don't want to put any limit.
It really comes down to just how much you want the cap hauling and the cost of it.
Right.
Are we having a real problem with people exceeding the limit of the trash on a weekly basis?
Well, some places will put out a ton, and then that's just bags all over the place. It's unsightly. It's blocking where the right of way. Like, if you have everything in one enclosed container, it's cleaner, and it doesn't create as much of an obstruction, probably.
And here's a question in practicality. Often, our current trash hauler will miss a week. They'll skip us.
That's why we're looking at.
Yeah, but I think it happens. I think it happens with all of them.
Yeah.
And so, can you double up the next week? Because
I would assume that we would do that. Okay. I mean, but I don't think. I mean, the goal is to just limit the amount that we have to haul, the cost associated. It wouldn't be necessarily prevent people from throwing away what they regularly produce. So
aside from a missed pickup, if somebody puts a tote out and an individual bags they had extra, is the hauler only going to take the tote and leave the bag?
It depends. I mean, sometimes trash companies they'll just throw it away. They won't ask questions, but others.
Well, it would be dependent on our contract.
Yeah.
That's what they'll have to do is collect based on what we put in the contract.
Plus,
that's a good question.
Residents could probably arrange bulk pickup, right? If you're moving out or something, you probably just let Republic know or whoever it is in advance, like you're gonna have more than usual. And usually, I think they're fine with that as long as you let them know in advance.
I think having a restriction in there that you can't put more out than one can is fine as long as it's not enforceable on, or not the limit for the hauler. Because if we have residents putting a bunch of stuff out, we don't want to sit there.
Exactly.
So if it becomes an issue, the neighbor calls, we can say, hey, you violated this because you're only allowed to put one out, but we know that when the trash company comes, we're taking it.
Yeah, but we should let folks know, we understand you're having a party, you're having something that, there will be times where you may have more than one.
Yeah, so I think this is John Walko's question to us, like, do we want to put that language of 1 unit in or just leave it out?
I think on the enforcement front, we would focus on a pattern of, putting stuff out as they're not supposed to, not the isolated one incident that they had to put out extra bags. I don't think we would be that aggressive in enforcing the rule. It's really about the persistent nuisance.
Okay. So would you...
And I've actually noticed that a lot of trash enforcement can be covered under the property maintenance code. We also have a property maintenance code, and in there's a whole section about trash and refuse, and it says that you have to keep them in enclosed containers. So if the fallback is, like, even if it wasn't in here, I mean, we have a property maintenance code that we could also enforce for trash. Like, I've done it previously.
Okay, so...
My recommendation, remove the unit, and later, if we find that we need to limit it, we can always come in with an amendment to the ordinance.
Okay.
Well, I'm sorry,
What do you think?
He has this spelled out like commercial and residential, so do we think, like, so for a commercial establishment, for collection by the borough's waste hauler, no more than 1 unit. I actually am comfortable with that for commercial.
I would agree with you, yeah.
Okay.
I think removing it for residential makes sense, and probably not
for commercial. Like, if you're using that much trash, then you need to move, then the borough should not be held responsible. So I would keep it 1 for commercial and then differentiate for residential.
Okay.
Then that unit would be in excess of the dumpster size. Yeah, I guess that's probably how we would say it, in excess of dumpster storage. And then even in that case, there might be isolated instances where there might be excessive, but we're looking for the pattern and issues of regularly being held. So.
Could we put, I think then comes the question of like, what size of the dumpster? Is there a standard size? Could we keep it of 1 or 2, and then at least we have it on the books, so if there is a serial offender, then at least you have some.
One unit being the total amount of waste storage available for the site or something like that. I don't know. You don't want it to exceed the amount of containers available for the site. Something like that.
Wait, I don't know what you mean, for a house though?
No, commercial. I'm thinking about commercial.
You're saying commercial, right?
Oh, we're still, commercial,
Yeah,
I would just say 1 unit of waste of what's a 40 tote, whatever,
A dumpster?
no, not even a
40 gallon.
dumpster, no, like they keep, that's saying a commercial business can put enough trash out for a dumpster that we're gonna pay for each week.
No.
Where I'm saying, no, if you're putting out that much trash, you should be paying for it. I would say that
Yeah.
whatever the tote is, and Jean, you said you did the research, what's
Okay.
Well, so they have different totes. They have a 25, or no, 20 gallon tote and a 48 gallon tote.
The typical one is the 48.
Yeah,
That's
okay,
the-
then.
All right, so 1 unit will be defined as a 48 gallon tote for commercial purposes, right? And then for residential, we're not going to have a unit.
We could put it on there, 1 unit of waste not to exceed a 48 gallon tote, and then it's on the book, so if there is a serial offender, we have something that you can refer back to, John, and say, hey, it's on the books, but certainly with the understanding that you're not adding trash patrol.
No, we'll be dealing with it based on these.
These guys,
Yes.
I'm comfortable.
So you would like it back in, but Ken's saying.
No, I agree with her entirely. I'm saying what I meant was remove the residential
Right,
unit
right.
and just have it number 1.
Yeah.
I'm saying
You want both?
I don't feel that strongly. No, if we want to do something for residential, I would think it's fine, and then the offices would use their discretion. Yeah.
What do you think, Dean? Does it matter to include the residential 1 unit definition, or should we not let it?
Perhaps.
So that would also apply to the 3 to 5 multifamily.
Yeah.
That's what my main concern would be. I think those are usually the offenders. But you said that might be covered in the property management.
Yeah, there's a lot in the property maintenance code that, like, for like sanitation purposes, like I said, if you're throwing your trash bags in your backyard and you're not putting them into an enclosed container, that's a violation.
About volume in there?
About volume, no. It's more about sanitation.
So I'm sorry, if I can just clarify. So your concern is, like, if we don't identify 1 tote per family, you could have a 5 multifamily use dwelling that has 10 cans out.
Right.
So that would be the need to say, hey, 1 per unit, not to exceed 48 liters. Is it? Okay.
So,
I do feel strong.
My 33 unit building has 10 carts, but it's corralled out of sight. So.
And now they'll need a dumpster.
No, I don't think we're going to say they need a dumpster, but we're just limiting the amount of.
No, we are saying they need a dumpster. More than 10.
Yeah, it's more than 10.
Yeah, more than 10 units, you need a dumpster.
Oh, yeah, and that might cause some challenges. Just because the site there doesn't have space for an on-site dumpster.
Yeah, that could be an issue too.
That's part of the reason why I would suggest holding off on the residential limit. The other is to, maybe it'd be helpful if we can get some data from the public in terms of what the typical household.
I think it's currently in our ordinance that we have an annual survey, right, of what the volume is like. Actually, I had a question about that, and we don't have to talk about that right now, but if we have that data, that might.
Does Republic provide you with anything?
I haven't gotten it.
I checked our files and I can't find an annual report from Republic for like the past like 4 years, so.
Annual.
The dumpster issue.
Yeah. They're supposed to provide collection
And then it
reports.
may be a parking space. Yeah, I think we've been doing this a year of us talking about this. Has been put on our radar for residents for over a year now. I would hate to have us start from the beginning. You know, I do wonder, you know, if there's a parking lot for a 30-person apartment complex, there's got to be a way a dumpster, you know, could fit or be purchased.
The site is really tight.
There are like on the Forest Avenue where you have these three, it's old, and there's literally no parking for the residents. It's all for commercial spaces, and there's no.
And keep in mind too, you need to have maneuverability to go and
Get the
sometimes
dumpster.
pull the dumpster if it's not near the street.
Yeah.
Well, then could we put a caveat, say not to exceed 5 48-liter totes, and then it's essentially on that complexes, then they may need to pay for 2 pickups a week if they only have 5 totes.
That may work.
You know what I mean? Like a dumpster or a limit of 5 48 totes. And again, they're paying for it anyway. They're paying for the dumpster pickup.
We gotta allow for some exceptions.
Yeah, but to say you're not getting an exception on the number of totes, that, okay, you're not paying for a dumpster, but now you're paying for pickup twice a week because you're only allowed 5 totes.
I think 5 totes for like one small dumpster is probably adequate.
Okay.
Yeah.
I disagree, but.
So what do you think?
Well, I see the garbage collect at my building, and they need all 10. If they had less, people would be sitting their garbage out.
Right, but that's once a week pickup.
Yeah, but it fills quickly.
Right,
I mean,
so-
like midweek, I'll see that most of the carts are full, and I'm trying to bring them money.
Right, hence twice a week pickup.
How many units are where you live?
It's 33, I think.
Yeah. So instead of paying for a dumpster haul, they're paying for a 2-week pickup, twice a week pickup.
It seems like.
Yeah, I don't think it's. I do.
I think we're saying the kind of the history was like apartment buildings and businesses, we've been paying for your trash hauling, and that's going to end.
Yeah.
Right, so if you're saying your property can't fit a dumpster, okay. However, you're not getting off on, like you also now are gonna pay for trash refuse, so that may look like this. We won't force your hand with the dumpster, but you're gonna have to pay them to get your trash picked up twice a week.
But do we really want that amount of traffic and damage on our roadways more frequently? I mean, the whole point of having just a certain number of collections a week is partly to limit the abuse our streets take in terms of weight and tonnage. Do you really want to incentivize that? I mean, perhaps maybe there's a better way of just saying that they have to pay some additional fee. We can work out of the contract. Where they'd have extra cans at a different rate, tiered rate. Thus, we still have the same collection times, it's just they have a higher rate they have to pay because of their volume.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I mean, so.
Our contract expires at the end of the year, so it's just a matter of being timely enough on this ordinance passed or that we've got it in place.
Right.
To also have the ability to negotiate our terms with the backing of our ordinance. So.
Right. And when do you need to begin the contract? I mean, do we have any wiggle room, or should we really just finish this today?
Yeah, we should just finish
We gotta
today.
finish this today.
All right.
We really do.
So the question is, there are 2 questions, I guess. One is about the dumpster requirement, which had been, we had kind of an older threshold, right, where you didn't necessarily have to have a dumpster. Now we're saying, what's our new threshold for eating?
10, okay. All right, because multi-family is up to 5, and then we're saying anything more than 10.
Wasn't it, what's over 5? Didn't we say 5 and over?
Well, the commercial establishments are defined as anything over 5.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Then yes, then anything over 5, you do a dumpster.
Actually, can we go back to the commercial establishment definition? So that's under 437.6, classification of properties, under C.
What page, Jane?
It's page
5.
5, thank you.
So it says commercial establishments, a property or a portion of a property used primarily to conduct commercial activities, business, or similar services that employ more than X people, and or any property with more than 5 family dwelling units, with each family separate and apart from the other. I think we also need to look at the employ more than X people.
Can we just get rid of that?
That's a hard provision.
We can't, like,
I don't think it makes sense.
no.
Yeah,
Because
we'll have to administratively come forward to all these places and have them confirm for us the number of employees.
and also the number of
And how do we
employees,
compel them to do that?
it's not a good measure of the volume of trash that they.
Yeah, so we could just strike that. That phrase. Okay.
Well, wait, and then underneath that, then this is where I got the 10. Or may elect to provide the collection and disposal of waste generated from property containing more than 5 family dwelling units and up to a limit of 10. Because then 10, it goes to commercial.
Now where's that?
That's right below G and C. Property subject to waste collection by borough. Page 5, C.
Oh, okay.
So like it also says the borough shall be under no obligation to provide collection or disposal services for property containing more than 5 units. So it seems like it would be on a case-by-case basis, based on the ordinance.
So, okay, so first of all, does that address the kind of historical concern that the borough was picking up more trash than it should be?
Yeah, so, well, I guess the two concerns were, A, the borough was picking up trash, paying for commercial trash that other municipalities are not.
Right.
Typically, they just do residential.
Correct.
Yeah.
But we have been kind of doing it just historically for all these commercial properties, saying, okay, why, we should not be doing that. And then the second concern is the walkability.
Right.
Is that the number of trash cans prevent walking. So that's why I am less concerned, to be perfectly honest, about the commercial space in the apartments. Because they've got like a really good deal for a really long time. So what we're asking them to do seems very fair to me. So that's why I am comfortable with the dumpster as defined. Or, if you're saying joint effort, or no more than 5 totes not to exceed 48, or whatever that number is. And then saying the burden of responsibility is on the establishment who's got, again, a really good deal for a really long time also seems fair to me.
I think you will find some areas that will have space issues, others that won't. So,
There's always exceptions. We
Yeah.
can work that out.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
So
and then
maybe
you
we
work
can
that
do it
out.
with exceptions,
I think, having some flexibility to switch between totes and dumpsters would be helpful, but it's not, I mean, I would assume that flexibility can be interpreted here, I'm not sure.
I would explicitly set it a dumpster or up to 5 totes. And then again, the burden is on the commercial place. Okay, we've got to get, pick up totes. That is not our problem because that's their property management issue.
So, just to be fair,
It will be a problem, just in terms of getting there on the enforcement side, but when we get done, it won't be. But
So the 5 totes is not inside, so a 15 unit place gets 5, and a 33 unit place gets 5?
Yeah, because it's got sidewalk coverage, right? So you would say, if you are unable to have the dumpster, then you are able to have, let's say, again, I'm using the largest tote, 5 totes, because that's the limit we set for a multi-house unit, right? We said 1 tote per family, so we're saying each property really shouldn't have more than 5 giant totes in their sidewalk. So I would keep with that.
What about, so if they're paying for their own pickup, what about requiring them to do whatever, like instead of the truck driving in to pick up the dumpster and doing it, they have to go and pull the totes out, dump them, and then push them back. So this way you don't have any of the curb space loss. So if they want to have 10 totes, that's fine. They stay in there until the trash hauler comes in, pulls them out, throws them in the truck, and dumps it back.
Yeah, like Lower Merion, where they would go to the back of the property.
They're paying for it on the commercial end, so.
Yeah, whatever,
Yeah.
exactly.
In that building, they don't obstruct the sidewalk, but there's a boulevard, grassy area where they place the totes.
But that's under the borough picking it up now.
I think so,
Correct.
yeah.
So it's gonna change now. They're gonna have to contract with somebody to come and get that, so.
Correct. I guess the only thing would be is we would have to put covered because there are houses that then look down into 20 totes.
I'm not saying a limit would be reasonable, but like maybe 10.
The totes are typically crowded together, and they're typically in a corral for most of these buildings. Over at Montgomery Court, they have corrals right in their front courtyards that are screened with fences. And they also have the totes in there as well. I don't, to me, as long as it's screened and out of view and they're paying the cost, I don't know why we would eliminate their option to use totes so long as they're not obstructing the street.
So that's a good idea.
Or obstructing the sidewalk.
Yeah, so you limit and say, okay, your option is the dumpster, your option is 5 48-liter totes, your option is to screen the totes and they are not to come out to the sidewalk.
Well, there lies a question too, like when you have property that may have more than one building on it, are we counting all of those buildings as part of the same unit?
One entity, one commercial. Yeah, because otherwise, Montgomery Court, right, that's like what?
That's a lot.
That's a big thing.
Yeah.
I don't think you should limit it to 5, but if that's, the property.
I like the option, the third option you presented is, as long as you don't bring it out. I think that makes sense, because 5 totes for some of the larger properties.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it is not enough, and I'm thinking of the apartment on North Essex.
So you're okay with this, Sharon, before you finish?
Yeah, I'm sorry folks, I have a hard stop at 10. Yeah, I think that's a fabulous compromise, as long as nobody's seeing it and the trash collector's going in the back.
If it's working for them now.
Right, they should, have them pay to have the collectors pull up.
Yeah, that's true. I'm thinking, the big apartment on North Essex. What is it? Greenwood Manor. Not in Central, that's right. But there are also ones that put 20. So
Okay, I'm sorry folks, I have a hard stop at 10. I'll see. I'm sorry, I'm comfortable.
So
Thanks for that idea.
finish
Thanks
this.
for your time. Have a good week, you must be exhausted.
So is that sound workable?
So let's clarify what the direction of the language is one more time.
Yeah.
To get that clear.
Okay, so Andrew, can you say it again for the compromise position? The totes should not be visible.
Wait, I just got a text from someone, like, look, this is Douglas.
Yeah.
Like, this is what we're talking about.
Yeah. So the first 2 options, that's what we're trying to prevent.
Yeah, this is what we don't, which is totes, and it's only 5, but they're huge, there's a mattress.
So we have the first 2 options, the dumpster, the 5 totes out, and then the third one is more than 5 totes, but not to be brought out to the sidewalk.
The contractor hauler has to go into the screened-in area, whatever that containment area, remove the totes to the truck, and then replace them immediately.
Oh, that's a good idea. Okay, I see what you're saying. All right, so can, do you think that's workable?
That's what they do in the apartment building next to where I live.
Yeah, no, they can do that. And we'll
That's what
make
they do
sure
with
to put that in
the
the
Forest
contract.
Avenue.
Okay, good. So that's the solution that would work for your building.
I'm gonna guess there's like 8 apartments per building, so it's probably
Yeah.
24 units.
Because just the space
works.
alone.
Also, then you don't have a trash truck coming in and out.
Very problematic,
Yeah.
and maybe even cause concerns for neighbors on top of that, force them to have to do that.
Right,
But
okay.
keeping it out of sight, that's, with what they have, should be pretty reasonable request.
Okay. And then it's on the building management to contract with that provision, right?
So if for whatever reason they can't have a dumpster, we're okay with them having the totes so long as they're kept on the premises and they wheel them, right?
Right, or they can buy totes
At the curb.
Now,
Right.
speaking of,
Yeah.
There are 3 options.
Okay.
dumpsters can be treated the same way, and haulers might require some of the customers to haul their dumpsters to the street for collection. I've seen this
Oh,
in commercials. This is in fact what they do in my buildings, they'll haul it, but in previous rental situations, they would bring the dumpster to the curb and have it sitting out there. So we want to address that?
I hope, yeah.
Well, if we're requiring people to add dumpsters, this might be a scenario that might arise.
Right.
But that'd be prohibited under the requirement that you can't have more than 5 totes out. So if you're gonna have 5 totes out, someone pulls a dumpster out, they're in violation. Again, I know the times that you're talking about, because I've seen people go, again,
Right.
the person's getting out, walking out, pulling the dumpster out to the front of the truck, dumping it, and then pushing it back.
Yeah.
At no time should it be stopped or parked, or whatever you call it, in front of the curb.
Totes and or dumpsters shall be.
All right, thank you for that
Yes.
solution. All right, so then, but before we get to this next point that Jean has, have we settled the 1 unit of waste question?
I thought, doing the 148 gallon tote was good.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna say.
Yeah,
148 gallon tote for residential,
per unit.
okay, and commercial. All right,
Are we limiting the number of totes again? With for the commercial?
well, yeah, we
He
had,
said 5.
That was for apartments.
Is that what we're doing? Yes?
oh, right, so for apartments are commercial,
Right.
right? So residential is not apartments, right?
No, I'm asking for clarification on the commercial side. Are we limiting the number of totes,
Oh,
like Cindy mentioned, or are we simply going with the screening requirement? Limiting the number of totes and having the hauler remove and store them.
Because there's different commercial uses that,
Yeah.
my commercial thing doesn't use any trash, almost no trash. Less than a residential unit. But a big restaurant, we can go through like a ton of trash.
right,
So you gotta figure that out.
yeah,
So,
they're all
So
lumped
you-
together as commercial
Yeah.
establishments.
I'd say leave it out and let's continue to work on it, and you can still pass an amendment to that a little later too, if we need more clarification to limit some of that.
so what part of the ordinance are we leaving out?
I think, well, we could just say, we could break out a category for residential, commercial hauling, and then specify the requirements for that differently than what we would do for the other ones, I guess. I don't know the right answer here, but
Well, if we look at the top of page 5, we have the 3 categories that John Walco gave us, the classification properties. So we have, A, residential dwelling, home or residence for single-family or two-family dwelling. Then the second category is multifamily dwelling. So that would be for, this is what we were talking about with Gene, 3, 4, or 5 dwellings. And then the third category is the commercial establishment, which is a broad category and it includes apartment buildings that have more than 5 residential units, but also restaurants.
Okay.
So that is a big category and you may want to have different policies for different
Yeah, I
How
think
about something more vague, that depending on the customer's refuse needs, the customer shall obtain the appropriate amount of storage containers, to maintain their stuff in an enclosed space, screened from view or something like that.
So, yeah, so I mean, what do you think? Is there a way to, what do we decide on the residential dwelling? Are we going to have one unit of waste for that or not? I think we said no.
So hold off, I think, was the kind of the consensus at the time.
Why are we holding off though? I mean, each resident should have just one can. 48-gallon tote is plenty for one residence.
I guess what Cindy was saying, that there might be instances where.
Then they just request bulk pickup. And every hauler has that, like, that's something that we can ask them to provide. You know, I don't see why it's an issue to do like one tote barrel per residence.
Yeah, I mean, we can do it. People have different size cans. People aren't going to want to buy them.
Yeah, but if they're all uniform, they're going to be all uniform 48-gallon totes. Like, these are all going to be the same cans.
Well, but what I mean is people don't want to buy. People
Yeah,
don't want to buy.
I don't think we're going to require that people buy
unless-
these cans.
Plus, we can bill it. I mean, we can bill it, take it out.
Put it in the
We
cup.
can if they have cans that are exceeding their size limit.
I feel like that's not sustainable though. Just
Yeah, but
because
it's a
we're-
one-time thing though.
Yeah.
They're gonna continue to reuse the
Well,
unit.
no, I mean environmentally sustainable too.
Well, we're gonna require them to recycle. I mean,
Well, so
the thing is, if you don't limit the amount that's hauled, then that's the amount of stuff that goes to the dump. So is that sustainable that
Right.
we allow, excessive amounts of refuse to?
okay, so you want to
So,
just
I mean, there's two sides of the coin.
Well, could we make it so that you could buy a container from the trash hauler and that's the standard size for you to or whatever? And then you could also use your.
If they don't have an appropriate size container that fits our size limit, they must purchase one from the hauler, which would assure us to know that what they're buying meets our requirements.
Yeah, I would love to have that as an option, where residents could buy containers, because we've had this come to our committee many, many times, grant concerns, rodent concerns, and the issue is the lids don't fit there.
Now, here's the thing, is I bet you the hauler will want us to pay for them up front and have us sell them. That's pretty common.
Okay,
Just beware.
okay.
We have a
Well,
solid waste fund. I mean, there's like 500.
that's right.
Yeah.
All right, so why don't we say one
It'd be
unit
like 140.
is defined as the 48 gallons.
Well,
Right.
that's, it's only an option though. You said like, so like,
48 gallons?
Yeah, up to 48 gallons.
yeah.
Okay, so we'll
That's
have
fine.
that as one unit, that's for residential.
You can also apply that to multifamily.
Multifamily as well.
Yep.
And then when it comes to commercial, how do we want to define one unit? Would it be, I mean, apartment buildings are so different from restaurants, I don't know how to,
Well, we can create another class.
okay.
I don't think we're strictly limited to the 3.
Okay. All right, so maybe that's, so what would we say for the apartment buildings? We worked out the solution.
Well, the commercial category and then residential commercial category.
Okay,
And that could cover that as well.
okay.
Would it be self,
Multi-use sites though, just out of curiosity. That would be something, I guess we would defer to whichever one is most stringent.
if the intent's to limit what we're taking up on the curb block and sidewalks, if you just say for any commercial property, you can't have more than 5 48-gallon totes out of the curb. And it's up to them. I think that, if it's a small business that only puts 1 out, they're good. If it's a restaurant that has more than 5, they have to abide by kind of what we said for the large apartment complexes. They put it in a screened container and then somebody's go fetch it and bring it out to the truck at a time. So I don't know that, do we need to really define all these extra categories? Or can we just say, no matter what, commercial, you can have more than 5 in the curb line?
If you want to make sure that the multi, what is it called, the retail or retail and residential district, like in the downtown district, that those issues are addressed through this ordinance, because I think the residents tend to put their trash out into the public. So
some do. There's particularly the apartments above the commercial Hampshire Avenue. Sometimes you'll see a giant garbage bag in that's actually illegal dumping in the public when it comes into the public trash cans.
Right.
That's inappropriate, and it's illegal dumping.
This is every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes two of my crew members an hour and a half each morning to empty the cans. We
It's
empty
time for
every
us-
single trash can, and by 11, you'll see they're full again.
Yeah, there's
To
people,
notify
there's
the
frequent
owners,
flyers
property
who do
managers.
that.
That we're gonna hold them to account for it.
So it's already covered by the ordinance, it's just an enforcement issue.
It's enforcement.
It's under the warning letter.
And, I mean, you can technically go in and open up the trash can and try and determine whose trash it is, but good luck with that sometimes.
So I know we're running over, so maybe we could try to wrap this up in like 5 minutes with the ordinance, and then, well, we'll see what we can do. But it seems like we have it figured out, the 1 unit of waste. And Ken and Alan, do you want to talk with John Walker about that commercial establishment 1 unit?
So we haven't really concluded a commercial limit yet, or is it up to 5 totes visible
It could be that, up to 5 totes visible.
at a time?
Yeah, if they have more than 10 family dwelling units, they're supposed to have a dumpster.
Right.
And if they can't have a dumpster, which is fine, then they just keep the totes in an enclosed area up on the premises, or up to 5 at the curb, right? That's what we're agreeing on. We don't have to really set like a number per dwelling unit, I guess.
For category C, yeah.
Because it's going to be on an as-needed basis. I mean, it depends on the commercial business, like the business, depends on.
Well, we want to be able to tell which dwelling unit is contributing to the higher volume anyway. Which one is putting more in the can than the others.
And then just to be clear, in the commercial establishments, we struck out that employ more than blank people.
Yes.
That's gone.
That's gone.
And then 43.7B, strike that out too.
Where is that? Oh, yes.
Or 37-6B, where we're,
Right, that's what you're asking about, Jim, right?
Yeah, I was asking about
So-
37-7B.
B, so we would just strike that, right?
Yeah, because we can't do it based on number of employees. Just take it out completely.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so, and I think C, just below you, Alan, is already addresses what Cindy did.
Yep.
So I think, are there any other concerns? Jean, that you wanted to raise?
So I just want to clarify, we are, the borough is possibly providing trash services for multi-family units between 5 and 10,
No, just between 3 to 5.
just between 3 and 5, okay.
Yeah, anything over 5 or if they're commercial, they're on their own.
Okay.
Okay.
So, all right, do you think that will satisfy John Walker? I mean, I've been reviewing his questions.
I think so. And like you said, maybe we allow people to use their containers that they have if it works for them. If it's under 48 gallons, and then they can go up to 48 gallons, and we could have a program where, they could buy it for maybe a good price or a fair price if they want to get like a tote or
Right.
a container.
I think
That makes sense.
yeah, I think
That's
that would be
possible.
great as an option for
Okay.
people to
And I
buy.
think, as Ken said, we can just define what is an acceptable container, has to
Yeah.
have tight fitting lids, and it can only, it can't exceed a certain size.
Yeah. Okay, so,
Actually,
yeah.
So some people do have smaller trash cans, maybe like 2 20-gallon
That's why we're
trash
saying
cans.
up to 48.
Okay, so it could be 2 totes. It could be, it doesn't have to be one 48-gallon tote.
Multiple totes, no more than 48
Right.
gallons in total.
Yeah,
Right.
okay, that's good.
And that works for like, older people who have trouble carrying it out, for a senior
48
population.
gallon, that's the.
It can get heavy.
Yeah. All right, I think, yeah, I mean, I'm looking at John's questions. I think that we've answered the questions, and Ken, you have what you need? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I guess we can move ahead with this, you know, once if you want to talk to John Wacko, so he can clean it up, and then,
Yeah, sure.
and then we would bring it to council as you,
For advertisement?
right?
Yeah.
Okay,
We'll also get the updated draft out to everybody, and if there's anything else you need to change,
okay,
you
great,
can address it at the council meeting.
great, okay, thank you. All right, the only other thing was the plastics ordinance. I don't know if we have time to do that.
I don't know if there was much for us to discuss.
No, it's actually very clean. There was one suggestion from the EAC that plastic utensils be made available upon request. So if that's something we do.
That seems reasonable.
Yeah,
That's fine.
so I would support that, and they also recommended a kind of standard sign be offered to the businesses so that they could place in the door to alert people to the plastic bag and styrofoam ban. So I think what we could do is just move,
Both forward for advertisement?
yeah, I mean, if you wouldn't mind communicating with John Walker just to include that one option for the plastic utensils. I think that was the only revision to that one.
I think if we are doing a sign, there needs to be some specifications on the timeline for that.
I don't think you need to codify it. We can come back here. You guys can decide what we want the sign to say, what it looks like, and we'll get quotes from a printer and work it here at the committee.
Okay, great.
That way.
Right, we can do that.
We'll make it available to them so that, you know, they can post it. But we don't need to specify that the borough has them in the code.
Right.
We'll give it to them in our summary explaining the changes.
That sounds good. And then we want to also alert the business community. So
So this was forwarded to the business community. Ed Bridgeway sent it out.
We just sent it out for a comment, not necessarily for timing. Do we have I think it would be helpful for the business.
1 year.
Huh?
It won't be like in effect for it's 1 year from when it's adopted.
Oh, it won't be in effect for a year.
For
Okay.
enforcement purposes, yeah.
Okay.
Signs will be put out in advance of that.
Yeah. So
Okay,
there's
well,
plenty of time.
because it's just, you gotta give them time to get the right bags.
Yeah,
have them
to
shipped
order
in,
things. And, yeah.
Order things,
I got 2 comments back. One was, I love this, I think it makes sense. The other one was, this person doesn't feel it's constitutional, so that you know how, just letting you know. But we already checked into all that.
Okay.
Upper Marion Township just last month passed this similar ordinance, and they're the retail capital of the area.
Because they have King of Prussia.
Right.
They have King of Prussia.
Yeah.
If it
So-
was unconstitutional, it would have been turned over by now.
Yeah,
Right.
the only, as a practical matter, as a retailer, you just want to give the businesses time to establish, get the bags in, figure out alternate ways to do it, so that they don't get caught with nothing to do. So
Right. Then they can also use up all their existing
That's
supplies
right.
within a
That's
year.
right.
Yeah, that's important.
So
Yeah.
I bought plastic bags and they're sold in these giant retail things. And I'm still going through the ones that, since I signed the 10-cent fee, 3 years ago. And because usage went down and I still have them. I don't, so trying to get rid of them.
I
Yeah,
think public outreach to the business community and to residents is going to be important.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we're finished then.
Are you recommending it move forward, or?
Yeah, we would like to see the Class 6 ordinance move forward with that one revision.
Okay, so what we'll do is, we'll publish with the revision. Prepare some outreach materials. We can come back to you after that.
Okay. All right, well, I think that's all our business for today. So thanks, everyone, and we will adjourn.
Okay.
Do we need a motion?
I move to adjourn.
Okay, we move to adjourn.